I invented Terraria chess. This video was inspired by LittleZ's I Made Pokemon chess. Unlike regular chess, each boss is an ability you can take into a game, such as King Slime being able to jump pieces like its checkers, or Queen Slime buffing the Queen significantly. This is the first episode, but stay tuned because the second part will be a Calamity Edition I've already fully fledged out, and the last one being a tournament with a $50 grand prize. This tournament will be held in the Ruthless Paper Discord server, so definitely jump in there if you want to participate. Now, without further ado, how does this all work? And what are all the abilities? You see, in online chess, the only way to play is by the rules, but chess.com has an analysis mode where you can move the pieces however you like. Regardless, there are some rules I've made that should still be followed. How this works is you share the board through screen sharing on Discord, and you can choose either you or your opponent to control the board. You can flip a coin, or elect a third party to share the board with both parties. Rule number 2 is keep track of your abilities. It is your sole responsibility to have a mental timer of when your ability will activate, else the timer will reset. Rule number 3. If an ability is every X turns, it is locked and loaded. You can use it any turn after it is loaded, and the countdown begins when you do. Rule number 4. Have fun. I couldn't think of anything better. Now to the meat and potatoes. What are all the abilities? The abilities all follow 2 structures. The first one being what piece the ability affects, such as pawns, rooks, all, bishops, whatever. And then they are either a passive, hybrid, or activate ability. So kicking off with King Slime, he affects pawns. Pawns now have the gelatinous ability to jump pieces like checkers. You cannot jump backwards though unless it is a king or queen. Eye of Cthulhu. Pieces can now dash diagonally like the eye itself. If it is their first turn, they can move 2 spaces. If you have 50% or fewer pawns remaining, 2 spaces becomes a standard. Eater of Worlds. Your pawns are all now segments of an ultimate pawn, and all share a health pool. Their total health is 12, and you can choose when a pawn has 1 or 2 health at any given moment, even during your opponent's turn. If damage is tanked, the opponent's piece is placed 1 tile before the pawn. Brain of Cthulhu. Power of the dodge. Every other opponent's attack on a pawn is missed, and the enemy piece will just move 1 space before where your pawn would have been attacked. Queen Bee. As you would a Queen Bee fight, dashing, you can dash through the enemy's pieces. It won't capture the piece, but you will face through it to the tile past it. Skeletron. Once every 3 turns, you can shoot a pawn as if it were Skeletron's skull. You can shoot it forward, sideways, or diagonally. Only upper left or upper right though, and the pawn must be sacrificed. Deerclops. In order to damage your pawns, pieces must be within a gap of 2 tiles, else they cannot be taken. And finally, last but definitely not least, Wall of Flesh. Gradually but slowly build a fortress of flesh. You can now move 2 pawns a turn with this ability, but this is your entire turn. You can't move a pawn and then move a rook. You can only move 2 pawns if you want that to be your turn, or a regular piece. But I feel as if I'm forgetting something. There are 2 tiers of abilities. We got pre-hard mode and then we got hard mode. Obviously just split in 2, because pre-hard mode, hard mode. But also because the abilities in each tier are balanced around each other. So naturally, a hard mode ability will just be better than a pre-hard mode ability. Now, tier 2, hard mode. Kicking it off, we got Queen Slime now. Affects the queen. The queen herself. Your queen now has an additional ability of the knight and takes 3 hits to kill. Any piece that hits the queen will be captured, however, and the queen cannot kill the king. Now for rooks, we have the twins. When at 8 pieces or below, rooks and bishops gain each other's abilities, and with every 3 turns, you can move both a rook and a bishop, but you can only move those pieces if you wish to use your ability. Destroyer. All of your pieces act as 1 mechanical vessel except for the king and queen. Any of the opponent's moves can pierce up to 2 of your pieces, but you'll be able to pierce up to 4 of theirs, and your pawns cannot be pierced. Skeletron Prime. Once every 4 turns you can activate this ability, which affects the 2 center rows of the board. Any opponent piece on the dark tiles, or night, will be stunned for 1 opponent turn, and any pieces on the light tiles, or day, will be just taken immediately. Plantera. Up to 4 pawns can grapple to the edges of the board. They cannot move once placed, and each placement costs a turn. These pawns cannot exceed your board half, but they act as intangible rigid hooks of Plantera, or your queen. The queen can teleport to any hook, but it kills the pawn permanently and new hooks cannot be made. Now we got Golem. Appoint a bishop to be Golem and a rook to be his body. At 12 pieces or below, the bishop can shoot a laser, thus taking whatever piece is in its path. The body can move the rook twice every time you play a rook. Empress of Light. Upon activation, all of your pawns enter into a dance of light and surround the edges of the 4 center tiles, taking any enemy pieces on the tiles. On the next turn, they will explode, each having a 1 tile radius. You cannot move them now. Duke Fishron. 14 pieces and above, pawns can dash diagonally in any direction for 1 tile. 10 pieces and below, this is universal. When you're down to 6 pieces, any pawn left becomes a Sharknado and trades with the remaining enemy pawns for a 1-to-1 ratio. If the enemy has more pawns, they keep the remainder and vice versa. Remaining pieces, even if you have any pawns left, can now dash 4 tiles in any direction, in addition to their typical abilities. Lunatic Cultist. The Doomsayer himself. Your opponent must checkmate you in 20 turns, else all of their pieces are immediately captured. Moonlord. All pieces in the center 4 squares are invincible unless you're left with 8 pieces. Upon reaching that point, the king can use a laser in any direction once every 3 turns. This goes through your own pieces and does not capture them. There are 4 modes of Terraria chess: Standard, Team Attack, Tournament, and Calamity. For this episode, I'll be going over Standard and Tournament. Standard. Best of 3. Both players choose 1 ability of both tiers. Both abilities can be used and reset in every game. Tournament. Best of 3. Flip a coin. The winner chooses their Tier 1 ability first. Then, the opponent chooses Tier 1 and Tier 2. The winner of the coin flip then chooses their Tier 2. No copy abilities. Tier 1 can only be played in Game 1, Tier 2 in Game 2. Both players must keep track of their timers, passives, and abilities. Do practice matches to get used to this. And also to prepare for the $50 tournament, which, depending on how many people join the tournament, it will range from 4 to 64 participants. So join the Discord if you like your odds or even just want to have fun. You could even start in the next Calamity episode. Speaking of you guys, want to get involved with Terraria chess? Great! I need people to play games with to gauge balancing, tweak the rules, and make Terraria chess the best it can be. Even after playing 1 game with Wall of Flesh, I gave it a nerf. Just because I've already made the abilities does not mean these are final. I am open to suggestions and would love to work with those interested for the future content. If this gets 25 likes, I'll release the Calamity version next upload. Whether you play in the tournament or not, why not try playing some of these abilities with fellow Terrarians? That's why I made this, for the fun of the community. How this works is you share your but now knowing this is the ability, we got pre-hard mode and then tier 2. Kicking it off, we got queen. These pawns cannot access. For this episode, I'll be going over standard, rooks, aquatic skirt.